Pickled. I am from the Cornell Church. And I was about to say this is going to be a difficult preaching, not because of the message, but because of this delicious food that I keep smelling. I wasn't warned about that. My mouth will be salivating, and I apologize in advance if I drool or something. That being said, before we begin, I would like to start with a prayer, but I usually like somebody from the congregation to pray for me and for the message. So I invite anybody who would be willing to volunteer. Voluntold then.
Dear Father in heaven, it's just a blessed thing to be in a community and listen to your word, sing your praises. We pray you just bless the word, have our hearts open, and let it be a wonderful time of fellowship and praise with you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. So, did anybody get a chance to see what the title was? Something about Peter. The title is The Peter in Me. Okay. At this moment, I'd like to ask you if anybody knows, if somebody has a word to characterize Peter.
Very boisterous and sure of himself.
Okay. Sorry, who said? Somebody said rock? Thank you. Somebody else was saying something? Impulsive. Any other word? No filter. I like that one. I did a Google search, and I wanted to know what Google had to say about Peter. Now, we can all agree Google sometimes will not be the best source of information. But I did like the way it was said here. Peter is impulsive, leadership-oriented nature, the son of thunder. Oh, no, sorry. That's where it stopped, sorry. Then the son of thunder is James and John. But I did like the impulsive, leadership-oriented nature. So, and now, excuse me, and now let's look at the other descriptions of the other apostles. The sons of thunder, James and John, being passionate and ambitious. Bartholomew, Nathaniel, being skeptical but faithful. Matthew, the tax collector, being methodical and possibly gregarious. Thomas, pessimistic intensity, and Andrew being enthusiastic and helpful. Now, we look at these attributes and we see how detrimental it was important, or how detrimental it was for the beginning of the church, right? We can all agree about that? Perfect. But I want to focus in Peter and how there's a little bit of Peter in all of us. Before I continue, and I usually like to do this because I like to have the congregation participate in the word. Can you name me one thing that you believe you're very firm on that sort of speaks to your character? I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to say, because sometimes I can't explain myself really well. My brother's passion is soccer. Has anybody met my older brother, Raf? Some of you guys have. His passion is soccer. Now, Raf is not a violent person whatsoever. The man, you could push him around and he would just walk away. But when it comes to soccer, do not try to push him. So that speaks to his character. That's his passion. He lives and breathes soccer. And he says, I'm happy I'm an Adventist because or else I'd be playing soccer all the time. So now, at this point, I would like to, now that I give you an example, I would like for some of you guys to participate in that aspect. And into that. Do you have something that you're so passionate about that it sort of changes your character to a certain extent? Horses. Don't mess with your horses.
You asked me a question, you better have time.
Fair enough.
And I was just going to say with ranching, I wanted to ranch from the time I was little. And my grandkids now say, Grandma, you knew from you were little, that's what you wanted. And I said, and I'm blessed because I do what I love to do.
So we can see that there's certain things that speaks to your character, right? I'll I'll get into the details a little bit of how of who I am in regards to that, why I'm saying this. Now, this attribute of myself has gotten me in a lot of trouble, and a lot of people don't see eye to eye with me when it comes to that. But my mom has told me that I'm just too just, and I'll explain as to why I mean by that. Or better said, what would you, if I were to tell you I'm a very just person, what would you understand from that? Fair?
Stickers for rules.
Sticker for the rules? Sorry?
Honest,
And yes? Sorry, you were saying?
honesty,
Honesty. Black and white. So yes. And for those who know, or for those who have been married, being black and white sometimes it doesn't really work to your advantage. So I'm very passionate when it comes to being just. And my mom has said to me, sometimes that blinds you. You won't see beyond black or white. And so it has gotten me in a lot of trouble, but also I believe it's given me an opportunity to learn more about myself in regards to that. And now let's think about Peter. When Jesus gave him the name Peter, do we know what the meaning was? The rock. What would come to mind if you called somebody, let's say for example, Grant, you're the rock. Sorry, you lifted your hand. Stubborn? Steadfast? Strong? Firm? Dependable? Now we're describing Grant here now, right? I'm kidding. So when that description is given to Peter, it said that he was the rock. Now, by looking at his character or how he was presented in the Bible, yes, it was somebody that was stable, but he was also very passionate. Passionate to an extent where, you know how they say that certain people, or for example, like horses, when they have an end goal, it doesn't matter what gets in their way. They're just going to ram through it. That's passion and dedication. They're steady. They just go for the goal. And that was Peter. Because if we remember when Jesus and Peter are talking, and Peter goes, "Wherever you go, I will go." And then what did Jesus say to him? Say that again? How many times? Before the? Look at the interesting point here. He's very passionate. He is the rock. He is steady. Nobody will move him. But yet, Jesus tells him, when the time comes, you're going to deny me 3 times.
He had already cut off one of God's ears, thinking he would go to the sword with the Lord, fight for him to death.
And it's wonderful that you're bringing up that point, because I wanted to touch base on that, which is important. Now let's take 2 seconds about what Grant just said right now, because it's very important. He acted before he thought. Now let's take 2 seconds, and this is where my just part comes into play. Yes, he acted before he thought, but who was he defending? So in my book, and this is me, right? Me being black and white. I'm like, wait a minute, he's not wrong here. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, he's defending our Savior. And most of us, we'd be on the same page. No, wait a minute. He's right on what he's doing. But what did Jesus do at that moment?
Healed him. Put his ear back on.
But he told Peter and to put away the sword. And this is where I say that there's a little bit of Peter inside of us. Some of us have it more intensely, others have it more hidden. But sometimes we're so convicted on what we believe that we don't care at times how we're going to make people feel. I'll give you an example. Me and my wonderful situations. I got visited by some Jehovah's Witnesses at my house when I was living down in Vancouver. I hold no prejudice over anybody. But I'm the kind of person that if I know what I've read and I know what I believe in, you will hardly move me. And we got into a lesson study. This brother didn't know that I held, because I don't know if you guys are well aware or you know about the Jehovah's Witnesses, but they have their own version of their Bible. Okay? Well, the one that you see now is not the one that I owned or my brother owns as well. We have one that dates all the way back from 1819 or something like that. Something very, very old. But in there, it's translated from Greek to English. And this is a Bible that they wrote, because they will never argue you with a Bible that you own. They will only argue with the Bible that they own. Well, because I'm very hard-headed, I said to myself, well, you know what? They're not going to catch me with my pants around my ankles next time. And I actually went on eBay and I bought that Bible, which is very old. And we started talking, and you know, it was a back and forth. So I said, okay, so you firmly believe what you're saying, right? And he said, yes, I know what I'm talking about, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I brought out that Bible, which is a purple Bible. It's an interlinear. And I go, this is one of your Bibles. And now let's go over it. And almost every other passages that we had read with his original Bible, with mine, was not adding up. And then I could see he was getting offended, right? And then he looks at me, he's like, you know, I'm very offended right now. And I said, why would you be offended? And he goes, well, because you're trying to disprove my religion with my own stuff. And I looked at him, I'm like, well, it's only fair. You won't allow me to use my Bible, so I have to use yours. He's like, but don't you think that it's very dangerous what you're doing, because now you're you're making me question my faith. And I said, oh, wow. I left it at that. We prayed. Well, no, he prayed because he wouldn't allow me to pray. He prayed and then left. And then I was talking to my brother, you know, and we were sharing ideas back and forth. And I said, you know what? I hadn't thought about what he said. And it is true sometimes, you know. Sometimes we're so convicting and we're so eager to prove somebody wrong that you don't know the turmoil that you can put them in. If you can actually make them second guess even their love towards God. So, does that make me right though? Because I was arguing with his own Bible, right? If you look at it in that way, I was doing my part. I was being fair and part of the rules that he had engaged. But was I right what I was doing? I don't think so. If you ask me, after a few years that I reflected on it, I don't think I was right. Is the word of the Lord cause for arguments or fights?
The Lord never did argue over.
Yes, he never did.
We're told to have love and compassion towards others.
Thank you.
Otherwise, our words are worth nothing.
So yes?
Yeah, in this specific scenario, they came to you. And wasn't that you started on the street with someone and went like that? I mean, they come to your
Yeah.
door. So I think there's an element of, you're allowed to go, how about this? Now, there's degrees of how to do this.
And this is where I say the Peter and I. where we feel we're right by chopping that off that ear. You know what I mean? It's because it takes 2 seconds, right? I could have been, he could have said to me, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Let's look at it together. Let's revise. And this, by the way, this is your Bible, but I know I didn't do it in that way. You know what I mean? We could have sat down and actually have not it was a civil dialogue, but it was not yes, thank you. It was not a discussion. It was more of a, you're wrong. Oh no, I believe you're wrong. And you know what they say, right? When you point forward, the little piggies come back home. And so we think about it. Well, I thought about it and thought about it very, very intensely, because the last thing you want is for somebody to get offended or not want to learn about God anymore. But it's a very slippery slope. Once you hold the truth, or you think you know the truth, we become sort of like that rock where we will not be unmovable. But I don't think, and I don't believe that Jesus was saying to Peter, you're a rock because you're so hard-headed. I firmly believe that he said, no, you're the rock because you're going to be the one that stands firm when the time comes. But standing firm did not mean, he didn't say you're going to be the throwable rock. He didn't say you're going to be that rock that whenever the wind comes hitting, you're going to hit back. He wanted him to know that he was going to be that rock that is a firm base for people to come to. Am I being clear on what I'm trying to say or depicting? Reliability. So I ask you, have you ever been in that situation where you're holding your ground correct, and you're not wrong on how you're holding your ground because you're right? But sometimes it would have been better that you would have been like, sure. But instead, you came back as a Peter and be like, you know what? No. I'm not gonna move, and you're still wrong. And something that could have been, and I'm not saying that could be with anybody, and it specifically happens with family most of the time when you have arguments with family. I'll be the first one to admit, me and my mom don't see eye to eye quite often because I'm the type of person that I'll be no, no, and no, and no. And by the way, no. Sorry?
Isn't that caused by fear? You're threatened.
Yes. I would agree with you on that. It is caused by fear, because if I don't believe that if I'm questioned on my own integrity, then who am I?
So if you're a real rock, you won't be threatened.
Exactly. It takes 2 seconds just to say, you know what, you're right. Even if I know you're wrong, yeah, go ahead. It's exactly, it is okay. It's okay to agree to disagree. Don't get me wrong, though. There are certain things that we have to be firm on. I'm not saying that it's a free for all, right? I'm being very careful on what I want to say. I'll give you another example. If somebody comes and tells you, well, the Sabbath shouldn't be respected or observed, that I draw a line there. There are certain things that we cannot steer from or not hold our values strong on.
A lot of times, the way the position is held, the attitude, the openness for learning makes a big difference. I've seen, especially in multiple churches that I've been involved in, where attitude may disagree with someone, but you don't have to bury the person.
Yes.
Crucify their reputation. And I see that over and over. Christ didn't do that.
And you know what? Grant just brought up a really good point. And I've experienced this over the years by visiting other churches as well. Have you guys ever walked into a church and everybody turns around and they just have that frown on their face? By your laughter, I would assume yes, you've been through that. I've been in the situations. And it doesn't feel necessarily welcoming. It feels hostile, and it feels like almost if you were to say something, it's going to go bad. So to that effect, and by the way, when I came in here, everybody had smiles, so thank you very much for that. I don't know if it was the smell of the food or I'm just looking good today, but I appreciate the smiles. But that's the idea, though, certain people also will invite that welcoming environment. You know what I mean? That you're open to dialogue, open to discussion, even if they might be very hard-headed out like myself. But it's just the idea or the concept of knowing that you can have that dialogue, that you shouldn't feel threatened. And that's exactly why Jesus gave Peter the name of the rock. Because although he was firm and steady, he knew that he was going to bring the sheep home.
Peter wasn't converted when he had denied Christ. Peter was,
No.
He was just like you and I. He was walking, he was learning and growing.
Exactly.
When he broke his heart when he saw what happened, and then he was converted. He became a different man.
Exactly. And let's not be like Peter to wait for something very traumatic to happen to want to change. It's a very, how they say this, it's a very dangerous game that you're playing sometimes to wait. You know what? It's already going to be January 1st. I'll wait until next year to change. It's what's a couple of months. And I'll finish with a very funny story of mine. So I enjoy when I have the word. I like to share my stories and how funny they are. So there was a birthday dinner that we were invited to, and mind you, I was 19 years old at that time. The youth our church had gone such a good moment that, like, I kid you not, there were about 27 to 30 young adults at that church. And we were so active, and we celebrated everybody's birthday. So our idea was that, over the year, everybody would put money in the envelopes for birthdays. And we would go all out for every birthday. Well, if some of them were close, we would celebrate together, right? But anyways, and this was the birthday of a certain young guy, and we said, let's go to a Mexican restaurant. And I said, oh, I know the best one, and you know what? It's so delicious. You guys will enjoy it. And everybody was like, okay, fine. The one thing was that restaurant was in a sketchy part of the neighborhood, but usually it's like that, right? Only the best restaurants are in the sketchy parts of town. So anyways, so we went there, and then some friends of mine, they were taking, does anybody, if I say the word metro, do you guys understand what that is? Okay, perfect. They had taken the metro, and I said to them, okay, when you guys get to that metro, I'll go meet you guys and I'll bring you to the restaurant because it's a bit complicated to get from the metro from there. And I go there, and they call me, and they call me and they go, hey, Henry, we're here. Fine. And I get up, I go to the metro, and then I had noticed that there were two guys that were drunk and a girl that was also drunk. And they were just, whatever, they were saying everything. And I looked at it and I said, this doesn't look right. Guys, you know what? Let's not get involved in whatever that's going on over there. Let's get out as soon as possible. I am not exaggerating. We open the doors of the metro. I take one step. About 7 cars, police cars. And I'm there. I'm like, just my luck. And again, people that know me knows that I have the weirdest and dumbest luck in the world. And we all of us get detained. And I'm standing there. I'm like, why? Why in the world did these things happen to me? Why? Anyways, but that's not where the fun starts. The cop comes over and he says, by the way, you're all being arrested because they were saying that the two young men that were with that girl, they were taking advantage of her. And I said to him, what, me? And he goes like, yeah, all you guys. I was like, that's not right. And he's like, no. We have witnesses that say that you were the main guy. I was like, really now? Okay. And I go to him, I have witnesses that I have not been gone from that restaurant for 5 minutes. So you better get your facts straight. Again, I could have been more quiet, more calm, but I wasn't. Exactly how I'm expressing it right now is how I said it. And he looks at me and he's like, no, we have witnesses. I'm like, no, I have witnesses. And then he goes and he says, all right, show me your ID. And this is the hard head on my head. No. And he goes at me, what do you mean no? I said no. He's like, why aren't you going to give me your card? Because I did nothing wrong. And he goes like, but you're still going to give me your card. I have to ID who you are. You're not going to ID me, period. And it was a battle of the wits. And then the cop tells me, well, you know what? Some people saw you jaywalking, so I'm going to give you a ticket to because you jaywalked. So either way, you're going to get my card. And I looked at him and I'm like, go right ahead, but you're going to have to take it out of my pants because I'm not giving you my wallet. And the whole thing shifted from there. It got even worse. He goes like, really? So you want to get arrested tonight, huh? You want to play this game? All right, tough guy, huh? I was like, I'm not tough. I'm just telling you, I'm not moving from where I am. And by then, it was already 10 to 15 minutes, and everybody at the restaurant had noticed, wait a minute, where's Henry? Everybody was eating. They had completely forgotten that I wasn't there, so everybody else came out of the restaurant. So then the cops got even more alerted. More cop cars showed up because they were like, oh, wait a minute, this guy has his posse with him. We don't know what how they're gonna react. And so my brother, my older brother, who's, like I said again, he's very calm. He says, Henry, just give them your card. Just whatever. What are they going to do about it? I'm like, that's not the point. The point is I didn't do anything wrong, so I should not be carded. I did nothing wrong. And my brother goes like, Henry, it'll take 5 minutes. They'll see your card. There's nothing wrong. What is going to happen from that point? Raf, you don't understand. That's not the point.
Your name, Peter?
And Raf looks at me and he goes like, Henry, okay, look, your food is getting cold. Let it be. And I was 2 seconds away of giving my card. And then the cop says, he murmured, but I know I heard it. Mind you, that could be me imagining things as well. But I know I heard it. And he goes like, see, I always win. And I said, no. And I looked at him. I'm like, you're not getting my card no more. And at that point, so because of my random luck and how dumb it is, honestly, it's not the first time I had been arrested for no reason. So I started to learn the law because it happened quite frequently. Yes. So then I go to the cop and I said, you know what? We're done. I want to see your supervisor. I want your badge number. And I want all these badge numbers. I want them right now. And he looks at me, and this is this punk kid that shouldn't know much about the law, you know, putting things in perspective. And he looks at me, and you could see his face drop because he knew what was going on at that point, right? Because I was trying to avoid. Oh no, I don't think I was trying to avoid anything. So then he looks at me. He's like, "You want to go that route? Fine. I'll make your evening even longer." And I said, "No worries. Let's go for it." Again, I was hungry. I was annoyed, but I knew I was right. And I did not want to let down. What ended up happening, because we didn't even get to the point where the supervisor or anybody else came. It was a female officer that was listening to the whole story. And mind you, I kept on repeating exactly how my evening had gone, what I did, and the reason why I didn't want to give my card. And this female officer comes around and she talks to my brother. And she goes, look, after hearing all of this, she goes like, I'm not a supervisor, but after hearing all of this, I know your brother's innocent. He's like, I know he didn't do anything. because his story has not changed from the very moment he started telling it. I know he's not lying. But please tell him to give us his card. It'll be over in 2 seconds. And I'll make sure that I grab it and I'll literally go to the patrol car. I'll fake I'm entering his information and just give it right back in 5 seconds. So Raph, my brother Raph, pulls me aside and goes, Henry, just give your card. She's going to grab it. It's going to take 5 seconds. Just let it go. I would love to say that I wanted to say yes at the very moment. I was very hesitant, and I even told to Raph, I didn't do anything wrong. I shouldn't have to give it. He goes, Henry, it's already 9 o'clock. Nobody's eaten. You haven't eaten. Please, just give your card. And I said, you know what? Fine. And I gave my card, and it went exactly how she said it was going to happen. She took my card, went into the cop card, literally sat down and came right back out. And she gave me my card, and she goes, all right, guys, go along your way. Again, I firmly still believe to this day I was in the right. But I could have avoided myself such a long evening, and I would have had my belly full if I would have just given my card in the first 5 minutes.
What's the moral of the story?
You can be so right and so wrong at the same time.
Yes. You can be so right, but yet so wrong at the same time. You can be so unbelievably well in your morals and hard as a rock, well planted, but you can end up hurting so many people along the way. Because not only I wasn't eating, everybody else around me wasn't eating.
That's all the blood pressures were high.
Let's just say I'm happy I wasn't 70 because I probably would have had a heart attack right there. And the reason why I say this and why I bring this up at all, it's that, as beautiful as this group is, my prayer for you guys is that more young people is going to start showing up. Because that's how it grows, right? But from the moment youth comes in through that door, disagreement comes in that door. It is very foolish to believe that when they go in that door and they're going to come and sit down here, they're not going to have a difference of opinion. And what would be easier? To say, you know what, fine, you'll find out in a couple of years, or to argue so hard, argue so hard that they're going to just end up leaving.
Not just youth. It's people that are different. People that have, like you say, they come from different backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, different familial backgrounds.
Yeah.
If we don't love them and encourage them in whatever avenue, they're not going to accept that we as Christians actually have Christ in our heart.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to reflect, that we have Christ in our heart. And as we said earlier, which you all said, I wasn't the one that said it, God wasn't one to argue about the word. Never did.
But as Peter was converted, he in fact did demonstrate that Christ was in his heart.
Oh,
He was a changed man.
100%. And that's why I say the Peter in me, because we have to strive to be like Peter, to have that full 180 in our heart. And forget sometimes about just being right. It's about loving one another. That is my message. I hope you guys enjoyed my stories. Like I said again, my prayer for this group is that it grows so much that you won't fit in here, but also that people that are struggling outside, specifically youth, and I can't stress this enough. I'm don't get me wrong, everybody counts, but I'm more inclined to youth, right? And when you see outside and the climate outside, how things are going, the youth needs us, period.
That's one of the reasons we're here. we want to actually touch the young people, young adults, young couples, people, kids, whatever,
Yeah.
to make a difference, to help them to meet Jesus. I don't care if you're a Catholic or a Baptist or an Adventist.
Mm-hmm.
All I care about is, do you know him? And if you know him, he'll do the changing. I don't have to change you.
Exactly.
You're not going to change me. He can change you.
Yeah.
We have to all realize that.
And that's what we have to strive for. So again, my prayer for you guys is just that this keeps growing, and that this is supposed to be a safe haven for all of us, right? So, but with that, that means that we have to have Jesus inside of us for it to be a safe haven. Yes.
I think what we need to do, according to the Word of God, is bring God's wish for us and explain God's character, how He works with people and how He can bless.
Mm-hmm.
And when we listen to His voice, we will have answered prayer. And when we have to answer the prayer, then people will see that. And how come your prayer was answered, not mine? And we have no answer to that either, because God has His own mind and can work different, because He knows the best, because He knows totally, because He created us.
Yeah.
But don't let us forget, we have still a mission to do, and that is to bring to the world God's character. And not if I'm right or He is right. No, but if they can see that in us or in our as a group, but God usually works with individuals and not necessarily a group, because there we have mankind have a difference of opinion. But God does not change, and if we keep that in mind, then He's our creator.
Yeah, definitely.
He has a bigger family than we have.
Yeah. I'm gonna finish off with one comment that I used to annoy me from my mom, but now I use it more often now with my kids. So it's ironic how that judo move works. You're wrong, I'm wrong. The only one that's right is God. It used to annoy me so much when I used to hear that. But she's not wrong. Yes.
Sorry. 154.
But hold on.
I wanted to say one too.
Yeah.